Good morning, Codger Biker here. I always enjoy those videos where people choose their best 3 bikes. So I decided to do the same. These are my best 3 bikes for 2022. Doesn't mean I'm going to buy them, just means that I'm interested in them and they have something that appeals to me. But I don't think Wolfgang needs to worry just yet. Oh, and if you've got a video channel, why don't you do the same? Let's see your 3 bikes.
Thanks for the invite, Codger. It's been a difficult time of year to produce motorcycle vlogs and content, so I appreciate the challenge. Anyone who watches the channel will have already guessed that my choices are more than likely going to be naked style motorcycles. When I was taking bike lessons back in the day, an acquaintance offered to sell me his Suzuki Bandit. I don't actually remember which model it was. I just know that back then there was absolutely no way that you'd catch me on a naked bike. In my eyes they looked pretty terrible, and there were more cons than pros to owning one. So I made that decision, never having ever ridden one, just purely on the looks alone and what I was looking for at that age. That all changed though when my mate Andrew let me have a go of his lovely lime green Triumph Street Triple. He got a go of my lovely R6, and within 2 corners I was sold, and he absolutely hated my bike. When we got to our destination, I changed my mind about naked bikes and was seriously thinking about buying one. It just felt really natural to me, more sense for how I like to ride my bike, the speeds that I like to ride, and I just preferred the riding position. And so after that I have bought and owned 5 naked sort of bikes. None of them have been super nakeds though. They've all been sort of 600 to 800 cc's, and I've kind of always stuck with the Colin Chapman Lotus philosophy of simplify then add lightness. I don't see the point in a big massive litre bike that weighs a ton, so that's how I've kind of picked my bikes generally. So lately I've been hankering after a little more horsepower. I don't know why, it's just an itch that I've wanted to scratch, but I still don't want to be wrestling with anything that's got 200 horsepower and weighs 200 and odd kilos. So I still don't want anything too extreme, and as Codger said, it has to be a 2022 model, so here goes. My choice for third would be the new Yamaha MT10. They're saying it's got 164 horsepower, which is actually still more than I would actually need or want, but hey, this is fantasy stuff, not reality. So yeah, the sound of the 4-cylinder cross-plane crank that Yamaha do is just it's just a beautiful sounding bike, right up there with the V4 Aprilia Tuonos. I just love it, a great sounding machine. There's a couple locally that have full systems on them and just sound like something from MotoGP. According to the online blurb, it's been improved this year with the airbox resonators, so yeah, we'll wait to see. I've not heard one. The thought of the semi-active suspension, the Olin suspension that comes on the SP, that's very tempting, but I actually prefer the look of the cyan blue that you get with the standard model. So seeing this is a fantasy thing, I will have an SP in the cyan blue, thank you very much Mr. Yamaha. My second place 2022 model bike takes a big drop in horsepower compared with the MT10, and that's the Aprilia 660 Tuono. Coming with only 100 horsepower, it's not going to be able to compete with Yamaha on the straights, but it's a good 30 kilos lighter, physically smaller, and it would be super nimble on twisty back roads like the ones around here. And it's the kind of bike I'd normally go for. I've always stayed away from the big liter bikes, as I said, preferring light, nimble bikes that require sort of forward planning with a gearbox. To me, that's a huge part of the fun of riding, having to wring the neck out of the bike just to keep up with your mates. Also, I've really clicked with the twin engine configuration since buying my 790 Duke. It's got enough low down grunt, and nowadays you can kind of rev them a lot more than you used to be able to, and the sound doesn't annoy people as much either. It's, even with an aftermarket exhaust, it's not nearly as obnoxious as like a 4-cylinder Japanese bike can be. It's a good looking little bike. I really like that sort of factory matte black over the standard. So yeah, that would actually be quite a realistic choice for me, not just a fantasy bike, but it still makes the top 3. My choice for the number 1 2022 bike that I'd like to own, even though I've never actually ridden one, is the Ducati Street Fighter V2. It ticks a lot of the boxes for me. It's heavier than the little Tiono, but it's still lighter than the MT10. 150 horsepower. It's also down on power on the MT10, but it's a good hike up on what I'm used to, and miles away from that sort of unusual 200 horsepower super nakeds that we love to watch in the videos on YouTube. I know I'm kidding myself that it's a sensible option, but it's a fantasy type video that we're doing here. So yeah, I could have gone for some really crazy stuff, and this is probably a restrained choice to a lot of people, but for me it hits the sweet spot. It looks almost as good as the full-on V4 version, but it's a lot cheaper, more usable for an average light rider like myself. And yeah, I genuinely love one of these in my garage for real someday. So what do you think? Which of the 2022 model year bikes would you have chosen? Comment below, or even better, make your own video. Copy me in. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Cheers.